Welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO. Thank you for tuning in today. In studio, for the first time in a while, Representative Dustin Burrows. Welcome back.
Chad, I missed you. I always enjoy being on the show, and so appreciate you having me on today.
Absolutely. This is the first time that you've done an interview since a scandal broke out down in Austin, a meeting between you, Michael Quinn Sullivan, and Speaker Dennis Bonnen. I want to ask you this, because this is one of the questions that I've been getting a lot. Why have you been silent, and why break the silence now?
So, a couple things. I've talked to a lot of constituents. I've answered every phone call that's come in. I've, quite honestly, kind of enjoyed not talking to the Austin media, to be real honest with you. We've been getting the boys ready for school and going about our business, and, showed up at a Lubbock area Republican women event the other day, and just, certainly it hasn't been that much. But I will tell you that I do believe that the people of West Texas deserve to hear from their state representative. Maybe they deserved to hear from me 2 weeks ago, but I'm happy to be on the show today and talking about all of this.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you on the program. So let's. I know you're running for re-election. You announced that yesterday on Facebook. You've received the endorsement of Governor Greg Abbott.
Announced last night, talking about the successes, the tremendously successful session we had last session.
Yeah.
Teacher pay raises, public education reform, property tax bill that, I championed throughout the entire session, most significant property tax reform bill in modern history, funding for a Texas Tech vet school, a lot of things, fighting for our first responders, and just very proud of what we were able to accomplish last session, and announced that I want to build on the momentum. Am I going to tell you we got everything done? Absolutely not. There's a lot of work to be done, and so excited to do that. And I think about 12 hours after I announced, Governor Greg Abbott, a man I have tremendous respect for, his wisdom, his judgment, what he did last session, came out and endorsed me, and truly I'm humbled that, he would do that, especially that soon.
With you announcing re-election and with the governor endorsing you, is there a feeling, with yourself and among your campaign, and even with the governor, that this issue is being wrapped up? I know the Texas Rangers are investigating. And is this getting behind you now?
Well, this is what I'll tell you. I think that the issue will most likely get behind us when the tapes are released. I joined Governor Greg Abbott, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, Speaker Bonnen, the chairman of the state Republican Party, calling for the full, unedited, complete, immediate release of the tapes. I've not heard any good reason why they've not been released. The idea that, the people holding them somehow want to protect the Republican Party is honestly kind of laughable, given that I think if you look at their history, it's really been not to help the Republican Party. And so I hope that they'll come out soon. I think the people of West Texas, the people who I'm seeking their support from, deserve to hear them. I want them to hear them, and they need to come out now. I wish they'd come out 2 weeks ago. You asked about my silence earlier. Quite honestly, I've been very surprised they haven't been out. I really thought they'd come out and I'd have a chance to look at them. This conversation happened, over 60 days ago. I have an imperfect memory, imperfect recollection of things. I know kind of some generalities, but if people want to talk about specifics, let's get them out there. Let's have a full, discussion of them if that's what people want to have. But here's the irony of things. And let me tell you, I think it's more the travesty of things. The reason the meeting happened, the reason that, I got invited to go into the meeting, and I think Mr. Sullivan wanted a meeting, was to discuss the importance of 2020, reflecting on 2018 elections and, Ted Cruz narrowly being defeated, that we lost a lot of judges, which I think is going to affect the judiciary, and we lost 12 good members of the Republican House. And we saw, attacks on the House by Mr. Sullivan against conservatives who actually share some of the similar, ideology and things with them. And the idea was that maybe we could figure out a way, to talk, to figure out if there's some common ground, some policy objectives that we did share. And I went there with, in good faith. And I'll tell you, I think maybe he didn't have the best of intentions.
When did you know that he was going to be there?
So I happened to be in Austin for a bill signing on property tax reform And, I happened to be around and got invited to go into a meeting, to visit with him. Certainly I had a lot of questions for him. I went in there with a lot of,
He had attacked you on social media.
He'd attacked a lot of people on social media. And this is what I think was just, kind of perplexing to me, throughout the entire thing. I mean, you've got some members of the Republicans, caucus in the House who care about similar things that he does, that have been allies in the past and, may not always be there, but, do care about maybe not him, but at least the people that he reaches and touches. And, they're good people. And I know that they're good people and they care deeply about the state. And some people, I have other members who really have kind of built their political career being against Empower Texas, and they relish the fact that he's fighting them and they really dislike him. And, that's a diversity within there. And so what was perplexing to me, throughout is watching, Mr. Sullivan kind of going after people that, maybe didn't agree with him 100%, but, 50, 60% of the time, and wanted to do some of the same things and had some of the same policy objectives that he did.
One of the things that you've been accused of is having a list of Republican lawmakers that were acceptable to go after in a primary. Talk about that. Was there a list, and what was this based off of?
Yeah, so first off, there's no physical list. We didn't walk in there with a piece of paper with the idea. The questions for Mr. Sullivan, I mean, the purpose of the meeting, was really about, okay, I get it. And at that time, I think that there was this push by him to try to maybe say that Texas House should flip, that maybe people should not vote for Republican state representatives. And so there was a lot of conversation about, that narrative and a push for policy that was going around. One of the issues was obviously taxpayer-funded lobbying, something that I think that banning it, Mr. Sullivan, myself, and the Speaker agreed was a priority item. Republican Party of Texas made it a top 5 Republican Party item. It's something that I wasn't wholly familiar with whenever I went to Austin, but it's where your city council and county government actually take your tax dollars and they go and hire, hired gun lobbyists out of Austin to work against a lot of things that I care deeply about. I was the House sponsor and bill author for property tax reform. I mean, you can't imagine the number of, how much money I think was driven to stop people from getting property tax relief and reform this last session. I championed a lot of things for first responders to make sure they were compensated. Those same tax dollars were being used against our first responders. And I had never seen a top 5 Republican priority go to the House floor, something that was supported by every single Republican senator, save and except one, come to the House floor and go down. And so, in the context of the meeting, and I believe, it was said, I've heard up to 5 or 7 times, we hope you don't go after any Republicans. That's not what we want you to do. Let's focus on 2020. We do not need to lose the House ahead of redistricting. But, if you're going to, why are you going after the conservatives that actually agree with you? Why are you going as all Republicans? Why aren't you going after the ones who disagree with you? If that's what you got to do that. And I can't, and I'm not going to tell you all the precise words. I mean, it was a hour-long meeting, but that was the emphasis. And so I talked to Mr. Sullivan. I talked to him specifically about a lot of policies that I hope we would accomplish in future sessions. There is a list of things that I wanted to accomplish in future sessions, and I was in there in good faith to talk to him about how to do that. But with respect to, where do the names come from?
Right.
I asked Mr. Sullivan, I said, do you agree with me? I may not be precise in my words because of imperfect memory, but if this was the most important economic policy and this was the failure, you can't blame the Speaker or the leadership team because it was a priority item. But, let's talk about, those who voted against it. I pulled up the record vote. It's a public document, has all 150 names on it. And I went through names of Republicans that voted against it. I talked to him about that. I made some subjective calls. I think when the tapes do come out, you'll see that it was not very prepared. And I went through them alphabetically, and I said, I don't think they'll vote for it. Yeah, I think they'll come around. And it was very off the cuff. From that's where these names came from.
I got 2 more questions for you, because I know you have to get going. One question is, and this dovetails in with ReElection that you announced yesterday
Absolutely.
on Facebook. You resigned as chair of the Republican House Caucus. there are, numerous articles about how there are some of your fellow members who are very upset with you. They're upset with the speaker. How effective, because when West Texans go and vote, they want someone who's going to be just as effective as you were in the last session. How can they know you're going to be just as effective?
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about the Republican caucus chair. I'm also chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and I'm looking forward to a healthy, interim, studying a lot of things to get more property tax relief to the people of Texans that they deserve. That's a very important position. That's where we actually, move policy and do things. The caucus chair, it's kind of got, multifaceted. There's a couple jobs. One is to advance conservative policy, and the other is to be a cheerleader for all 83 members. You can imagine sometimes those two things do come into conflict with that. I had members who encouraged me not to step down. I had members who called and said they were disappointed I had. I had some members who directly said they hoped that, I would move on so that, we could bring some things together. Now, the ones who told me in my face happened to be Aggies, but that's an aside. And I made that decision. Here's some good things about it. Number one, I have a tremendous amount of confidence in who the chairwoman now is, Stephanie Click. She led a county party, in a suburban area. She is strategic, she is brilliant, and she's got great messaging and strong. She's also a female. One of the things that I think that we've all talked about is Republicans, especially, in 2018, have not done well with female voters. I think it's a great idea to have her at the front coming into 2020, and I think the messaging is going to be really great by that. But if you're asking just about effectiveness, being the Ways and Means chair, building on the momentum from the last session, clearly we're going to have a lot of influence.
Before we let you go, obviously the Texas Rangers have been investigating this. Have you been questioned by the Texas Rangers yet? And did you there was the alleged offer of media credentials to Empower Texans. Did you offer that specifically?
I did not, but let me talk about this. So this is the worst of politics. We have a secret recording. We're letting it drip out one time at a time. We're having selective clips talked about, out of an hour-long conversation. Certain people get to hear it, and then they get to go give their accounts of it. Here's the good news. It's out of politics' hands. It's in the Texas Rangers, one of the most premier law enforcement agencies in the state, probably the entire country. I respect them. I am glad they're going to take a look at this, and they're going to say what I think I already know at the end, which is there was nothing illegal done in that meeting.
Have they talked to you yet?
They have not.
Okay. Representative Dustin Burrows, appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on, and we'll visit with you in the near future.
Chad, I look forward to it. You're always one of my favorite shows to come on, and I appreciate you very much.
Appreciate that. That's Representative Dustin Burrows here on the Chad Hasty Show. News Talk, KFYO.